The day I became the most hated man in my neighborhood was also the day I became its most powerful. The HOA fined me $500 for fishing with my grieving daughter. So I bought the lake and banned the entire neighborhood. But trust me, this wasn't revenge. Not at first. Before all of this, I was just a dad trying to start over. After losing my wife to cancer, my 14-year-old daughter and I moved into Lakeside Estates, a quiet community wrapped around a glittering lake. The realtor promised peace, safety, and a place to heal. Every evening, we'd walk down to that water with our fishing poles, the same ones my wife used to hold. For a few calm minutes, the world stopped hurting. I thought the lake would help us rebuild what grief had broken. I thought this community valued peace as much as I did. I couldn't have been more wrong. One Saturday morning, sunlight danced on the lake as my daughter reeled in a tiny bluegill. It was the first time she'd smiled in weeks. Then a voice sliced through the air. "Excuse me. What do you think you're doing?" A woman in designer sneakers marched toward us, tablet in hand, expression sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm Karen Wellington, HOA president. Fishing is prohibited here." I blinked. "Prohibited?" The realtor said it was allowed. She tapped her screen. "Rules changed last month. $500 fine." My daughter's smile vanished. "We're not hurting anyone," I said. "Rules are rules," she replied, turning away. That morning, a single slip of paper appeared in our mailbox, a violation notice. It wasn't about the fish, it was about control. And for the first time, I realized Lakeside Estates wasn't a neighborhood. It was a kingdom, and Karen was queen. That night, I scrolled through every HOA email and document. No notice. No vote. Nothing about banning fishing. I called a few neighbors, they hadn't heard of it either. The rule had appeared out of thin air. I learned Karen had single-handedly pushed it through a closed meeting, claiming environmental concerns. Yet photos on her social media showed parties at the very same lake, music, drinks, fireworks. So, environmental meant nothing when it was her champagne corks hitting the water. Something deeper was happening here, and I intended to find out what. The next morning, I met Merrick Henderson, a retired attorney walking his dog. When I mentioned Karen's fine, he laughed bitterly. "You've met the dictator," he said. "She's been running this HOA like her own empire." Over coffee, Merrick showed me files he'd kept for years, residents fined into selling their homes, properties quietly bought by shell companies linked to Karen's real estate firm. Then came the biggest shock: the lake didn't even belong to the HOA. It was leased from the original developer, and the lease was expiring in 2 months. Merrick suspected Karen planned to buy it herself, then build luxury homes along the shore. Later, we met Samuel Washington, a retired banker. His spreadsheets exposed everything: unfair citations, forged approvals, selective enforcement. Karen wasn't preserving community standards. She was monetizing misery. That night, staring out at the moonlit lake, I whispered, "If she wants to own this water so badly, maybe I should let her try." I'd spent 15 years investing in failing companies and turning them around. Reading balance sheets was second nature, and Karen's finances screamed desperation. She'd leveraged every property she owned. One failed deal could sink her. Merrick, Samuel, and I started planning. The goal wasn't just revenge, it was liberation. We would wait until Karen announced her grand lake renovation, expose her misuse of HOA funds, and buy the lake out from under her nose. Timing would be everything. The lease expired in 8 weeks. If we struck too early, she'd find another buyer. Too late, and she'd close the deal. For once, every lesson from my corporate years had meaning again. I wasn't fighting for profit, I was fighting for my daughter's peace. Through a trusted broker, I reached the original developer, Meridian Development. They were in financial trouble, desperate to offload assets. Karen had offered $300,000, financed over 18 months. I offered $350,000, cash, closing in 7 days. To keep it quiet, I formed Thorncroft Holdings LLC, my invisible shield. Within a week, the lake, and 10 feet of land around it, was mine. While Karen prepared her fancy presentation for community lake upgrades, she didn't realize she was about to pitch plans for my property. The HOA clubhouse overflowed with residents. Karen stood at the podium, PowerPoint glowing behind her, elevating Lakeside Estates. She spoke about preserving nature, raising property values, and introduced a new fee, $50 a month for lake improvements. Then she smirked. "Certain individuals have disrespected our rules. But under my leadership, order will be restored." Applause. I sat in the back, silent. She had no idea the ground beneath her was already gone. A week later, Karen hosted a lakeside party, white tents, champagne, the works. Only approved residents were invited. Perfect. As music played, I walked down the hill with Merrick, Samuel, my lawyer, and a local officer. Karen spotted me and hissed, "You're not welcome here." I smiled, took the microphone. "Actually, Karen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This isn't your party, it's mine." Laughter rippled, until I held up a document. As of 3 days ago, this lake, and the 10 feet surrounding it, belongs to Thorncroft Holdings LLC. That's me. Gasps. Karen's face drained of color. Effective immediately, the HOA's access agreement is terminated. You have 15 minutes to gather your things and leave. Officer Reynolds will ensure an orderly exit. Silence. Then murmurs, then applause, from the very neighbors she'd bullied for years. For once, justice echoed louder than her voice. Within a week, private property, no trespassing signs circled the lake. The news spread fast, HOA tyrant dethroned by the man she fined. Karen tried to sue, but the deed shut her down. The board demanded an audit. Her closest allies resigned. I announced a new purpose for the lake, a conservation and kids fishing program. Every child in the community could fish for free, except the ones whose parents still sat on the HOA board. Suddenly, resignation skyrocketed. Even Karen's supporters turned against her. For the first time, the lake was peaceful again. Today, my daughter teaches younger kids how to fish right where her mother once stood. Laughter echoes across the water instead of arguments. Sometimes I sit on the dock, watching ripples shimmer in the sunset, and think about how one act of pettiness changed everything. They fined me for fishing. I bought the lake. And somewhere between loss and revenge, I found peace. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's quiet, calm, and completely yours.